live once again. Good evening, folks. Welcome to Friday Night Tech Talk. I'm Mobile Geezer, which you're well aware of if you're watching on my YouTube channel, but you can also watch simultaneously on either one of my Facebook channels, which is Mobile Geezer or George Hayes. But in any case, glad you're here. If you're new, please type something in the comments. Let us know you're here and where you're from. And if you're new, we do this every Friday night. We go over some articles that have come out in the last week about tech. If there's a big event, I try to get that in. Other than that, I give you articles that I think might be interesting to you guys who are probably tech nerds like me. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here. And Brian, number one in tonight. Always glad he's here. He's always a good contributor. So let me show you tonight's show notes, which is on my webpage. So let's share screen. And I always give you the show notes for the show. So if you go to mobilegeezer.wordpress.com, click on today's date, you'll get the show notes just for tonight's show. And as I do every week, we'll give you the preview of what we're going to share tonight. Google changes policy on antitrust case, now allowing employees to discuss DOJ lawsuit. Found that on CNBC.com. After that, what I considered the big event of the week, even though there was no formal presentation, Google, the Pixel 9a has been revealed. So I pulled the story from Android Central, and it's going to be everything you need to know about the 9a. Some people are excited. I have the 9, so of course I'm not getting the 9a. And as I usually forget to do, I should probably show you which phones I had with me today. My primary phone was my OnePlus Open, and my secondary phone was my iPhone 15 Pro Max. That's what I had with me today. So, continuing with our little preview. Trump's 90-day tariff pause gives Apple shares their best day this century. I found that on CNBC.com. And after that, Siri team morale, not good, on Tom's Guide. They go into depth about what's been holding up Siri and why things have been so messed up. After that, Elon countersued by OpenAI over fake takeover bid and more. Got that on The Verge. Another story from The Verge. Some of the National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration workers evaluating full self-driving cars were fired by Doge, which was also Elon. And I saw that story on a couple of other people's weekly shows also. And finally, we'll discuss why the big jump in the OnePlus Watch 3 price. I got it at the original price, but yeah, there's been a big jump, so we'll take a look at that also on The Verge. So those are the stories I have for tonight. And Eleanor has popped in. Let's see, stop screen for a minute. Hi, Eleanor. Glad you are here as always. So Brian and Eleanor, two of the most faithful, are the first two in. So if Ted happens to come in, I will let you know I have not heard from him. If by some miracle we get Will 2 weeks in a row, that would be awesome. Now, you know, Will and Ted were going around about the Nintendo 2 Switch last week. Ted, not a believer in any way, and Will has already gotten it and has told us all about it. And maybe Will come, and Will did come out on Saturday in our group chat on, where was that? can't even think of where it was. Telegram. And he said he's now open to looking at it. So I don't know if Will will come in and they'll discuss that, but if he does, I'll certainly let you know. And if by some miracle Mike comes in, well, I'll let you guys know about that too. Meanwhile, back to tonight's notes. Share screen again, back to my web page. And if you just want to click on the links in the story and follow along, that's fine. Any comment you want to make, just type it in there and we'll discuss. So, Google changes policy on antitrust case, now allowing employers to discuss DOJ lawsuit. Let's go over to CNBC.com. And this was published Wednesday. Google reverses policy telling workers not to discuss DOJ antitrust case. And it was written by Jennifer Elias. And let's drop it into reader view and get rid of some of these ads. Google has reversed a policy forbidding employees from discussing its antitrust woes following a settlement with workers. The company sent a notice to U.S. employees last week saying it rescinded the rule requesting that the workers refrain from commenting internally or externally, I don't see how they could legally do that, about the ongoing antitrust lawsuit filed against Google by the U.S. Department of Justice, according to correspondence viewed by CNBC. Google settled with the Alphabet Workers Union, which represents company employees and contractors, according to the U.S. National Labor Relations Board, or NLRB. The settlement and policy reversal mark a major victory for Google staffers. Yeah, I guess they should have won that one, who have seen increased censorship on subjects such as politics, litigation, and defense contracts by the search giant since 2019. When I was a defense contractor, they didn't come up with this kind of nonsense. Of course, that was the early 2000s for me. The U.S. Department of Justice filed an antitrust lawsuit against Google in 2020, alleging that the company has kept its share of the general search market by creating strong barriers to entry and a feedback loop that sustained its dominance. Google said it will not announce or maintain overbroad rules or policies that restrict your right to comment. Yeah, well, they already tried that, didn't they? Internally or externally, about whether and or how the ongoing antitrust lawsuit filed against Google by the U.S. Department of Justice may impact your terms and conditions of employment, according to last week's notice. The policy change was first reported by the New York Times. The reversal comes as Google and the DOJ prepare to return to the courtroom for their scheduled remedies trial on April 21st. So we're only 10 days away from that. The DOJ has said it is considering structural remedies, including breaking up Google's Chrome web browser, which it argues gives Google an unfair advantage in the search market. A U.S. District Court judge ruled in August that Google illegally held a monopoly in the search market, and we gave you that story at the time. Google said it would appeal the decision. The DOJ doubled down on its call for a breakup in a March filing. Following the August ruling, Kent Walker, Google's president of global affairs, sent a company-wide email directing employees, and this is where they're backing down from, to refrain from commenting on this case both internally and externally. They can't legally make them do that, which I gather once they went to court, they knew that. Shortly after, the Alphabet Workers Union filed an unfair labor practice charge against Google with the NLRB, which they should. The union alleged that Walker's message was an overly broad directive and said that a breakup could impact workers' roles. The NLRB in March ruled that Google must allow workers to speak on such topics. Google's settlement states that the National Labor Relations Act gives employers the right to form, join, or assist a union. It notes that Google is not rescinding its prior clarification that states employees may not speak on behalf of Google. Well, I think that's reasonable on this matter without approval from the company. The settlement also adds that Google will not interfere with, restrain, or coerce workers in the exercise of their rights. Well, let's hope not. Despite the settlement, spokesperson Courtney Mancini said that Google did not agree with the NLRB's ruling. And I did say Mancini because I was raised in Jersey with a bunch of Italians, and I tend to speak Italians' names the way they're supposed to be spoken, no matter what they look like to us in English. To avoid lengthy litigation, we agreed to remind employees that they have the right to talk about their employment, as they've always been free to and regularly do, Mancini said in a statement to CNBC. The settlement by Google comes at a crucial moment ahead of the remedies trial, the Alphabet Workers Union said Monday. We think the potential remedies from this trial could have impact on our wages, working conditions and terms of employment, said Stephen McMurtry, communications chair of the Alphabet Workers Union, CWA, told CNBC. So, at least they can't restrict them completely from talking, and I think that's a good thing. Nothing else new in the comments, so we'll move on. And like I said, to me, this was kind of the big story of the week. Pixel 9a has been revealed. So let's go check it out on Android Central. And this came out 3 days ago, written by Nick Sutrick, who's a very good writer for them. Google Pixel 9a price, specs, and everything you need to know. The Pixel 9a is here, sporting a new design and plenty of AI features for a lower price. So into review we go. Bye ads, I hope. At least I hope we go into review. Sometimes it takes a minute for it to react. All right, what are you doing? You're freezing up on me? All right, one more time. Cannot convert to review. I wonder. They were deep yesterday, and I'm going to say okay. There again, right, because I tried it. All right, I'm going to come out and come back in and see if that corrects it. Once more. Okay. And see, it does. Sometimes it's has a mind of its own, I guess. The Google Pixel 9a is the budget counterpart to the flagship Pixel 9 series. This affordable device costs $499 like the Pixel 8a before it, yet the specs are very close to its more expensive top-of-the-line siblings. The Tensor G4 processor is from the flagship Pixel 8 phones, and you get premium Gemini features on board. This is what makes it such a compelling buy, even when compared to the Pixel 9 and 9 Pro. Yeah, I have the 9. No, I have the 9 Pro, sorry. Beefed up internals aside, the Pixel 9a also rocks a fresh look. Gone is the classic camera bar that had come to become a hallmark of Pixel phones. Yeah, this one's a little different looking. Instead, we have a much flatter, cleaner, and more minimalistic monochrome outfit with the 9a. Love it or hate it, it is what it is. Let's see. Got a picture here? Yeah. You can see it's flat. No big bar like it has on the other phones. So, the mid-March launch and April release for the Pixel 9a is slightly ahead of schedule. After all, the Pixel 8a was revealed in May 2024, and I got that, and Elna has it now. However, Google has been inching Pixel release dates forward and making Google I/O a developer-focused software event rather than a Pixel hardware one. As such, the string of rumors pointing to a March 2025 launch for the Pixel 9a ended up being correct. If you're not planning on buying the more expensive Pixel 10 series later this year, the Pixel 9a could be a great alternative to settle for. Yes, since it's much closer to the flagship 9s than they have been in the past. In fact, it seems like the 9a could very well be one of the best mid-range Android phones of 2025. Could be. Aside from the refreshed design, the Google Pixel 9a adds a bigger battery, a larger display, and a new rear camera system. Plus, there are new Gemini tools like Gemini Live with support for video live streaming and screen sharing. To find out everything there is to know about Google's latest mid-ranger, read on. Pixel 9a, price and availability. Google revealed the Pixel 9a for the first time on March 19th with a starting price of $499. The phone will become officially available for purchase on April 10th, which was yesterday, from the Google Store. From the Google Store cellular carriers and third-party retailers. Yeah, I did see it on Amazon. The Pixel 9a is available in 4 colors: porcelain, obsidian, Irish, and peony. It starts with 128 gigabytes of storage and can be upgraded to 256 gigabytes at an additional cost. Let's see if there's a picture of all 4 of them here somewhere. Yeah, there's all 4 of the colors. Okay. For the first time, you can get the Google Pixel 9a in any color and storage configuration you'd like. Previously, if you wanted to get a Pixel A series phone with 256 gigabytes of storage, you had to choose the black Obsidian option. So now they've opened it up. You can get whichever one you want. Plus, new Pixel 9a buyers will get 6 months of Fitbit Premium, 3 months of YouTube Premium, and 3 months of Google One for free. That would add up to about $100 in value, assuming you don't have them already. If you pre-order a Pixel 9a with Google Fi Wireless, you can get it for free with $499 of monthly bill credits returned to you over 24 months. Google Pixel 9a design and display. Historically, the Pixel A series has used a design similar to that of the main series, but with a few tweaks. In the Pixel 8a's case, the corners had a slightly wider curve than the Pixel 8 series, making it even more of a squircle. I never saw that word before. Google made a massive design shift with the Pixel 9 series, dropping the friendly curves of the last 4 Pixel releases and going for a much more industrial design. Google is changing things up once again, keeping the flat side rails of the Pixel 9 series and further flattening the overall design by removing the trademark Pixel camera bar on the back. And I already showed you that. And you can see it here. It's not the big camera bar that we've had up to now. While prior leaks suggested the camera cutout on the back of the Pixel 9a would be flush or recessed, this isn't actually the case. Yeah, it's close to flush. The lens cover for the Pixel 9a's 2 rear cameras protrudes from the back of the phone slightly, so there's a small bump. The back cover of the device is made out of polycarbonate plastic, and the side rails have a satin metal finish. On the front, there's Gorilla Glass thread. Let's see. Annette's in here. Glad to have you here, Annette. One of the very, very faithful. Ted is in here. Now, last week, Ted came in the comments, and I guess he was on his way home, and he came into most of the broadcast. So let's see. What else is he saying? Never thought I would see the day when I would miss a camera bump. Oh, he's missing it. Brian says, looks like plain Jane. Now, Brian is the big Pixel lover, so I'm still expecting you to get this one, Brian. I don't know. Unless you're like me. I think you had the 9 Pro, the 9 Pro XL. So I know I won't be getting it. Okay. The Pixel 9a comes in peony, obsidian, porcelain, all Pixel 9 colors, and a 4th iris color instead of wintergreen. Google will sell official color match cases too, and I have not seen those as yet. And there's the 4 colors. The Pixel 9a has a POLED panel that measures 6.3 inches and comes with an FHD Plus resolution, 1800 nits of HDR brightness, 2700 nits at peak brightness, and at 120 Hz refresh rate. Compared to the Pixel 8a, the Pixel 9a display will be distinctly larger. It's also 400 to 700 nits brighter depending on the context, but otherwise match it for smoothness, resolution, and durability. And it's a little bit larger than the 8a. Fans of small phones may be disappointed, but there's good news. The 6.3-inch Pixel 9a weighs about 2 grams less than the 6.1-inch 8a, so they did a nice trick there. Even if it doesn't look as striking from the back, you may appreciate the extra visual space in front. So there's the difference in size. The Google Pixel 9a measures 154.7 millimeters by 73.3 millimeters by 8.9 millimeters, which is just as thick as the Pixel 8a, but wider and taller. It'll feel different in the hand since the thickness of the Pixel 9a is more uniform than its predecessor. At 185.9 grams, the Pixel 9a is heavy for a smartphone of its size, but remains lighter than the Pixel 8a. Nice trick. 9a cameras. Yes, Brian did say that. He's like me. He has the 9 Pro, so he doesn't need the 9a. I'm in the same boat. The Pixel 9a now figures a 48 megapixel main sensor, similar to the one found on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. It's a 48 megapixel GN8 quad dual pixel primary camera with an f1.7 aperture and a 1/2 inch image size sensor. That's pretty good. It delivers optical quality at 0.5x and 1x when paired with the 13 megapixel ultrawide lens, but there's still no telephoto or sensor crop offering here. Super Res Zoom, which is a digital zoom with enhancement, is available up to 8 times. That's good. The secondary ultrawide camera stays at 13 megapixel and offers a 120-degree field of view. That's pretty good, matching the Pixel 8a. The front-facing camera remains at 13 megapixel too. In other words, only the main sensor is changed from what the 8a offered, at least for hardware. That doesn't include the full slate of new software tricks Google is bringing to the Pixel 9a for the first time. You get features like ADME, astrophotography mode, and real tone on the Pixel 9a as well. That's good. Specs and performance. Pixel 9a uses the same Google Tensor G4 processor as the Pixel 9, paired with a Titan M2 security processor. This was all but assured because Google has used Tensor in the last 3 generations of Pixel A series phones. Tensor G4 is only a minor upgrade over the Tensor G3 in most respects, although it's capable of processing specific AI-related tasks faster than some other leading flagship processors. It also runs quite a bit cooler than the Tensor G3, but at the expense of being slower in gaming and other heavier graphics processing-based scenarios. Google is not expected to deliver a massive upgrade to its Tensor line until Tensor G5, currently slated for the 2025 release of the Pixel 10 series, and then the Pixel 10a, in theory. The Pixel 9a tech spec sheet provides other key details: 8 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigabytes, or 256 gigabytes of UFS 3.1 storage, Android 15 with 7 years of updates, a 5100 milliamp battery, 23 watt wired and 7.5 watt wireless charging, an under-display fingerprint sensor, and Wi-Fi 6E. So down here you've got the specs. If you guys want to look at them, we've gone over them. Okay, the Pixel 9a and Pixel 8a thus have comparable memory, storage, software support, security, and connectivity. The key differences are in battery and charging, as the newer model adds about 600 milliamp capacity and an additional 5 watts and 2.5 watts to its wired and wireless charging speed. Well, that's good. Even a small jump is always good. A small performance and battery boost with comparable specs. Otherwise, seems reasonable given that Google made so many requested spec upgrades. Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job here, like the display refresh rate in the Pixel 8a. The redesign and larger display seem to be Google's focus with this generation. So that's everything about the Pixel 9a, and for those who don't have the 9 Pro or Pro XL, they might be excited about it because it's very close to the 9, I gather. So that's that one, folks. Let's see. Nothing new. Yeah, and Brian did say it looks plain Jane, and I think that was the intention, to make it look plain Jane. I think, to make it look more plain and industrial, I gather. So interesting. And nothing else new, so we will go on. And maybe if we're lucky, Ted will join again. I'll let you guys know. Okay, Trump's 90-day tariff pause gives Apple shares their best day this century. I found this on CNBC.com, and I just found it to be an interesting story. Apple has best day since 1998 on Trump's 90-day tariff pause. This was also from Wednesday, and it was by Keith Leswing. Kiff, I guess is how you say that first name, Leswing. So let's go into review. Okay. Now that looks like a CEO who's happy with his stock price. And they always take these pictures from some other time. This is at this event in September 9th last year. But I guess they make the picture fit the story. Apple shares skyrocketed 15% on Wednesday after President Donald Trump announced a 90-day pause on his administration's reciprocal tariffs, which would have affected the company's production locations in Vietnam, India, and Thailand. The rally added more than $400 billion to Apple's market cap, which now stands just under $3 trillion. Now get this. It was Apple's best day since January 1998 when late founder Steve Jobs was the interim CEO and 3 years before the company unveiled the first iPad. At the time, Apple's market cap was close to $3 billion. Look at that jump, will you? That's amazing. Apple has been the most prominent name to get whacked by Trump's tariffs. Before Wednesday, it was on its worst 4-day trading stretch since 2000. Investors worried about Apple's outlook because the company still makes the majority of its revenue from selling physical devices, which need to be imported into the U.S. Most of Apple's iPhones and other hardware products are still made in China, which was not exempt from tariffs on Wednesday. Yeah, quite the opposite. In fact, Trump increased tariffs on China to 125%. Well, now it's up to 145% on Wednesday, up from 54%. Yeah, so they came back, and then Trump hit them again, and now it's up to 145%. That's the last I heard. China issued an 84% tariff, and that was his response, the 125%, on U.S. goods this week, raising the possibility that Apple could get caught up in a trade war and lose ground in China, its third largest market by sales. So I guess it's India number one, us number two is U.S., and then I guess China number three. Apple has worked to diversify its supply chain to lessen reliance on China in recent years. On Wednesday, tariffs on Vietnam were reduced from 46% to 10%, tariffs on India 26% to 10%, which raises the possibility that Apple will be able to serve a larger percentage of its U.S. customers from factories outside of China with lower tariffs. Yeah, and they also flew like 1 million and something over before the tariffs kicked in, but that was a very small amount in Apple's overall. Stocks skyrocketed across the board on Wednesday after Trump announced the tariff pause. The NASDAQ composite climbed over 12%, its second best day ever. Apple has not commented publicly on Trump's tariff, but CEO Tim Cook will likely address the topic in an earnings call on May 1st. So, gave them a very big day, so good for them. Brian's predicting the iPhone is going to cost $3,000. Now, some people, I don't think anybody knows yet, but we'll find out. And keep in mind, the iPhone comes out in September, so we will find out. September, October, I always get confused. But, that's so far out, I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen. Trump is obviously still expecting China to cave. A lot of people are. So who knows? Sip of my Coke. Okay. Next story. Siri team morale, not good. I found this story on Tom's Guide. New Siri report reveals epic dysfunction within Apple, but there's hope. That's by Scott Yonker. And he said, enter Air Force One. Let's go to read a review. Okay. A deep dive into Apple's ongoing struggles to rebuild Siri has revealed myriad details on the internal drama between high-profile leaders within the company. Reporting by the Information's Wayne Moss, I think this part should be gone. I think should say the Information's Wayne Moss reporting contains a detailed timeline of how Apple got to the point of publicly announcing that Siri 2.0 would be delayed into 2026. Now, a little while ago, I saw a headline that they might have it out by September, but without the personal stuff. So they're working hard to get this thing out because they're very embarrassed by this, as they should be. Class of the managers. On a high level, the problem appears to be a conflict of managerial styles and backroom ambition between different teams within Apple. Siri has been under the purview of John Giannandrea. I always have to stop and look at that. Giannandrea, formerly of Google since 2018. He was hired to run a new AI group, which included Siri. Reportedly, Siri engineers already felt like second-class citizens at Apple, a problem that was made worse as they struggled to keep up with iOS app updates and features being released by Craig Federighi's software group. So those are the two leaders. Federighi was placed in charge of the Siri overhaul in March, I think after they fired the old head, alongside with his number two, Mike Rockwell, who created the Apple Vision Pro headset, as Apple attempts to revive its Siri revamp. Yeah, well, the Apple Vision Pro headset was kind of a failure itself. Although he did a great job in designing it. I agree with that. The difference between Giannandrea and Federighi appears to be the difference between the tortoise and the hare. John is allegedly more of a listener and slow mover who lets those underneath him take charge of the work, especially his number two, Robbie Walker. He reportedly preferred incremental updates and was repeatedly cited as a problem with Siri development. You wonder who said he was the problem. Might it be the other guy? Meanwhile, Federighi is described as brash and quick, but very efficient and knowledgeable. Supposedly, Giannandrea's relaxed culture led to other engineers dubbing his AI team aimless. Notice the AI at the beginning. Apple Intelligence surprise. Surprisingly, according to the Information, most of what we know of as Apple Intelligence is thanks to the software team led by Federighi. That makes perfect sense. His software group had its own AI team, which reportedly absorbed more AI responsibilities and built within the existing systems. This was not appreciated by the Siri team, so that's why, who often felt left out. But the Siri team was apparently very slow to make progress, so they just pushed ahead, I gather. In fact, the Information report says it took 2 whole years for Walker to remove Hey from the Hey Siri voice command. That does seem like a long time to remove one word. What Apple demoed for Siri during Apple's WWDC 2024 event, which is way back now, is what's been delayed. Yeah, they showed us all this stuff and none of it came. Even by the end of the year, most of it hadn't come. This includes Siri's personal context understanding, on-screen awareness, and in-app actions. And that's the heading I saw said Siri might be, the improved Siri might be here by September, but without the personal context. But I didn't get a chance to read it, so. The demos included asking Siri when mom's flight would land. Yes, I remember that demo. And the voice assistant accessed the person's email and real-time flight data to provide the updated arrival time. Yeah, that was very impressive when they demoed it. Siri will also be able to access key info from your text messages, such as providing details of your lunch plans and offering directions. Yeah, assuming they get it right. Ma claims that internally there's optimism that Federighi can turn things around and deliver those features, whatever it takes. It's been reported before, but Apple has an almost maniacal dedication to privacy when it comes to its iPhones and data, so we're told. This has led to things like a struggle within the company on building AI models for Apple Intelligence using third-party large language models like ChatGPT or its own internal models that wouldn't have access to the same generally stolen data sets that OpenAI uses. That's right. OpenAI didn't care about the legalities of what they use for theirs. One of the first things that Federighi did upon taking over the Siri team was to let engineers access third-party AI. Ma writes, in a departure from previous policy, he has instructed Siri's machine learning engineers to do whatever it takes to build the best AI features, even if it means using open source models from other companies, in other words, stealing it, in its software products, as opposed to Apple's own models, according to a person familiar with the matter. The information reports that previously Apple's machine learning engineers were only allowed to use third-party models such as a benchmark for their in-house large language models, a problem when apparently the in-house models were routinely outpaced by OpenAI's tech. Sure, OpenAI went anywhere and got theirs. The crew Federighi has assembled, including Rockwell and Kim Vorath, are known within Apple for getting projects to the finish line in a timely and efficient manner. Yeah, well, they certainly need that now. Having only just taken over the Siri overhaul, it will still be some time before we see what they're able to do with Apple's voice assistant. Will they beat the 2026 timeline as Federighi attempts to get the best AI features into Apple Intelligence? I guess mostly they probably will, it seems like. We'll be watching for signs of progress at WWDC 2025, which is getting close now. So we'll see. So it's been the managerial struggles that have caused the problem, as far as we can tell. Interesting story. I just think stories like this are very, very interesting, especially since it's been many months and nobody has told us anything about why that everything's been so delayed. Okay. Elon countersued by OpenAI over fake takeover bid and more. Yeah, Elon was part of the original group that started OpenAI, and he was very upset when he took it to make money. So let's go take a look. This was in The Verge. OpenAI countersues Elon Musk to stop his attacks and fake takeover bid. Elon's nonstop actions against us are just bad faith tactics to slow down OpenAI. Yeah, it does seem like he wants to embarrass them, like he's trying to embarrass them. It's written by Jay Peters, and it's 3 days ago. 3 days ago, sorry. All right, interview review. OpenAI filed a countersuit against Elon Musk on Wednesday, saying on X that Elon's nonstop actions against us are just bad faith tactics to slow down OpenAI and seize control of the leading AI innovations for his personal benefit. In the lawsuit, OpenAI's lawyers argue that Musk's continuing attacks on OpenAI, culminating most recently in the fake takeover bid designed to disrupt OpenAI's future, must cease. Musk should be enjoined from further unlawful and unfair action and held responsible for the damage he has already caused. I wonder how much damage he has caused. Musk, who was part of the initial founding team at OpenAI, initially sued last spring, saying he wanted to force the company to return to its mission to develop AI for the benefit of humanity instead of pursuing profits. Yeah, he was very upset by that, I gather. The Verge's editor-in-chief Nilay Patel found Musk's legal case against OpenAI hilariously bad. I think he's just trying to embarrass them. Musk dropped that lawsuit in June, but sued OpenAI again in August. In December, OpenAI published a blog post with the headline, Elon Musk wanted OpenAI for profit. I doubt that that's true, but I guess they have to strike back. With receipts. The case is scheduled to go to trial in the spring of 2026. So I guess we'll find out the truth in the trial next year. Earlier this year, Musk also offered $97.4 billion to buy OpenAI. Yeah, that's a joke. Saying in a statement that it's time for OpenAI to return to the open source safety-focused force for good it once was. And that is what it was. OpenAI's board of directors unanimously rejected the order, which today's filing called a sham bid. So they're suing back, but like I said, we're going to have to wait until next year till it goes to court to find out the truth of what's going on here. So just another interesting story. And another Verge story that somewhat involves Elon also. Some of the National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration workers evaluating full self-driving cars were fired by DOJ. And this is on The Verge also. NHTSA staffers evaluating the risk of self-driving cars were reportedly fired by DOJ. One fired worker said the changes could weaken the NHTSA's ability to understand self-driving technology. Yeah, that doesn't look so good. And it was by Umar Shakir yesterday. So let's go to review. One fired worker said the changes could weaken NHTSA's ability to understand self-driving technologies. One fired worker. Oh, okay. It's the same sentence twice in a row. Okay. I guess one was for maybe a picture that was up here. Okay. Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, fired about 30 members of the National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration in February, and many of them were part of a department that assesses the risk of self-driving cars, according to Financial Times. Yeah, that does not make Elon look good. One worker laid off from the NHTSA's so-called Office of Vehicle Automation Safety, he said so-called, so I guess that's not the real name, told the Financial Times that DOGE's actions could weaken the NHTSA's ability to understand self-driving technologies. Another worker said it'd be ironic if the firings would slow down Tesla's plans for autonomous vehicles. That's true, because supposedly we keep hearing that Tesla is getting closer and closer to autonomous vehicles, to full self-driving. Like I said, all rumor. Tesla is under multiple investigations from the NHTSA over its automated features, including its full self-driving software and remote summon feature. Now, I've seen the remote summon feature on Cobra Told You, and I think also on Jay Williams' channel. And they just, had the car come over to them with nobody in the car from, like the other side of the parking lot. That's pretty cool. Tesla's FSD and autopilot driver assistance systems have more reported crashes, this I didn't know, on the road than any other company. So, yeah, they've kept that quiet, I gather. Families of victims who died in Tesla crashes, I didn't know that either, have urged Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy to protect Biden-era rules to report automated vehicle crashes, fearing Musk's involvement in the Trump administration could influence investigations. Well, let's hope not. The firings also came just months after the NHTSA released a new framework that could ease regulation on self-driving cars. Well, I don't know if you want to do that, but in exchange, companies would need to share more data with the regulator. So, all in all, that doesn't make Musk or those look too good as far as self-driving, but hopefully they're not. The conflict of interest isn't too bad, I guess, because it's obviously there. Okay, I've got one more, and like you guys know, when I'm by myself, it's always a short night. You got one more sip of my Coke. Okay, my last story has to do with the OnePlus Watch 3, which I already had. And like everybody else, when I pre-ordered it, late February, early March, I had to wait because instead of made in China, they had MEDA in China. And we all had to wait until they fixed it. So Why the big jump in the OnePlus Watch 3 price? So now it's available, but it's a big jump from what I paid, and you'll see it in the story. I said, glad that I got it at the lower price. And I checked mine last night, and it does say made in China, so they did get that corrected. It's tiny, but it's there. All right, let's go look at the Verge again. OnePlus won't say. That's surprising. Why its Watch 3 suddenly cost $170 more than promised? Yeah, mine, I paid $170 less. The delayed Made in China, and that's what the problem was. Smartwatch is now $499 rather than 52%, roughly 52% more expensive than originally planned. That's 52% more than I paid. And you'll see that as we go down. And that's by Victoria Song, and that's from yesterday. So let's review this, get rid of the ads. If you are hoping to cop a OnePlus Watch 3, and I would highly recommend it. I love my OnePlus Watch 2, which lasts, if I stretch it, 2 days. But my OnePlus Watch 3, at least 3.5 days. So you could probably stretch it to 4. So big difference. If you were hoping to cop a OnePlus Watch 3, you can finally buy one starting today. Now, this was yesterday. The problem is it's no longer $329.99. That's what I paid. Price that was originally intended when OnePlus announced the device a few months ago. It's now $499, $170, or roughly 52% markup. The price hike was spotted by a number of Android blogs, but what makes this odd is a lack of official communication from OnePlus itself. Yeah, they won't speak on it. Normally, companies will alert press and longtime customers, as consumers generally don't react well to unexplained price hikes. However, no such hint came from OnePlus before the smartwatch went on sale. Nobody was expecting this big jump. When asked about the price increase, OnePlus spokesperson Spencer Blank told The Verge, "We don't have any additional comment to share at this time." That is strange. You think they'd want to say something? I think they could come up with some statement that would make it sound reasonable. The obvious explanation, though, though unconfirmed by OnePlus, would be tariffs. Unless you've been hibernating under a rock, and you've probably seen headlines. Unless you've been hibernating under a rock, you've probably seen headlines about President Trump's ever-increasing tariffs against products shipped from China. Yeah, why wouldn't you admit that, since everybody knows about it? As of this writing, they're currently sitting at 145%. Yeah, that's just on China. While most wearables and gadget makers I've spoken to have acknowledged tariffs will have an impact on pricing, some have opted to take a more wait-and-see approach. That's what I would do. This is, however, one of the first examples of a smartwatch actually increasing in price, let alone by such a dramatic amount. It's also unusual given that many gadget makers attempted to delay such price hikes by increasing inventory ahead of the tariffs taking effect. That's what Apple did, keeping consumers from actually feeling the impact of tariffs on their wallet as soon. Yeah, if you're trying to wait and see what happens, that would make sense. Others, like Framework, temporarily opted to halt some sales in the U.S., but OnePlus may not have been able to stockpile units in the U.S. early because of an ironic mistake. Yeah, this is when they messed up printing on the watch. The OnePlus Watch 3 was originally set to launch back in February. That's when I pre-ordered, but was delayed because of an unfixable typo engraved on the black back plate. That typo, made in China rather than made. So I'm glad I got mine at the original price. I feel sorry for anybody who has to pay the $499. But do I think it's worth it? Maybe not quite that much, but it's a great watch that I would highly recommend. So it'd be iffy at that price for me, but it's a terrific watch, and it's probably on its way to becoming my favorite, including my Galaxy Watch and my Apple Watch 10 series, Apple Watch Series 10. So that's all I've got for tonight. Been through all the stories. I guess Ted is out. He's in Dallas, so he's probably still out and about. And hopefully you guys found these stories interesting. And those who wanted to learn about the 9A, well, now I've given you a lot more information about the 9A than you probably had before, at least I hope. So that's it, folks. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, and I hope everybody is blessed. And I will be back next week, and if we're all blessed, Ted and or Will might be here also. So see you guys next week, and let's always remember we all do better when we love each other.